Hey guys, part 1 is currently available and up on YouTube. Highly recommend you go check that out before this one. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Please enjoy.
I'm in the thick of it, everybody knows.
Number 5. No, we're not done yet.
And it's probably A minor.
I'm sure there are people out there who will still argue with me on this, but from what I can tell, it's very obvious that Drake came out of this looking worse for wear, while Kendrick did nothing but capitalize on it. I just think it's clear who planned their moves better ahead of time, that's all I'm saying. Because while Kendrick basically became kind of a ghost online post-beef, Drake was still shitposting online, and that's when he wasn't relying on Camila Cabello or Sexy Red for crumbs. And even then, that still doesn't explain this.
Walk on Delilah, no I'm late cause there's bad traffic. I just showed my dog your Grammy, said he knows a man that slapped it, I'm so cheese.
The only thing you need to know about Snowd4y, I think it's pronounced, is that apparently he's this comedic singer from Canada who I really couldn't find much about online. I imagine that this was supposed to reinforce Drake's loyalty to Toronto, but all it really did is make people realize that Hey There Delilah by the Plain White T's is a perfectly fine song. That's right, the best thing that Drake did this year was redeem a song that never deserved the level of hatred it got. And while I would love to do an in-depth analysis of every single line, this really is one of those cases where all I need to say is go listen to it and you'll get why it's here.
Oh, don't you be acting me.
The guitar is just a straight rip from the original, the vocals are just bafflingly badly produced, to the point where many Drake stans were arguing that it couldn't be real and that a Kendrick fan had made this song with AI. Boy, must it have been embarrassing to be in Drake's shoes that day, to have to come out and say, no, I really did this, I really chose to stoop this low.
Brought my chronom for your bestie, sorry, he's wearing a shiesty, he's not beat.
I know it's obvious, but why is he talking like this? I get that it's Toronto slang. I get that Drake has frequently done weird accents and voices in the past.
Arabic ting told me that I look like Yusuf, look like Hamza.
But he's never done a full song like this, and it actively plays into what Kendrick was saying on Euphoria.
You know I got language barriers. There's no accent you can sell me. I be at Newhall King eating fried rice with a dip sauce and a blammy crody. Tell me you're cheesing, fam.
The only way that this makes sense is if Drake recorded it months in advance, Kendrick caught wind of it and decided to make fun of him on Euphoria before this dropped, and for some reason, with everything else going on, Drake just forgot to call Snowd4y and tell him to please God cancel the release of this song. Because I definitely think he would have been better off if this never saw the light of day.
And oh, if you're trying to hit it, look on the TD, RBC, Scotiabank, RBC, CIBC, PC Financial.
For what it's worth, the song isn't higher because a part of me is too confused to hate it. If this was just a Snowd4y song, I would have probably forgotten it after one listen. It's far too childish, and after all, this is his entire shtick. Making fun of Toronto rude boys, I get it, it's just not for me. But Drake's presence on this, and the timing of it, all of it just made for such a fascinating train wreck that made for one of the biggest jaw-drop moments of this year, for better or no, just for worse.
I swear it's true.
I'm in the thick of it, everybody knows.
Number 4.
We could go ban for ban. Fuck that, we can go M for M.
In a shocking twist of events, Central C doesn't have a song on this list. Crazy, I know, but when compared to his first attempt at a crossover back in 2022, it seems like his strategy this time around is just to be more confusing than bad. I don't know, maybe he's starting to reflect a bit on his behavior. And perhaps he realized that name-dropping a woman that you've likely never met on your song is profoundly creepy. If only everyone else learned that lesson.
Let me play some shit and tell you about how I need a famous chick. Woo! Attracted to your status, baby, you're A-list. I need a famous girl.
For those of you not based in the UK or Ireland, you likely have no idea who this guy is. He's probably best known as being that one British rapper on that one Luciano song, but he initially blew up back in 2019 off of a string of fairly mixed singles. As an okay UK rapper with a surprising amount of charisma for someone who looks like an extra on Peaky Blinders, years. But while he has had a handful of songs that I'm a big fan of, like War or Rain or Baby, this is quite simply his worst song to date. Now, I know that that's a loaded statement. Hell, just this past year, he made songs with D-Block Europe and Heady One that could have been contenders for this list. But the moment I heard that Gorillaz sample, I was instantly put off. And that was before he opened his fucking mouth. As he then proceeds to show why he's a
fame fucker
or star fucker, both work.
Not someone who's nameless, stop being strangers, come here and change my world.
Okay, so he's very open about how he needs to date an A-list girl. And if that's what you're into, I can't relate, but whatever does it for you. Good for you. But did you have to pitch the synths like that?
I got sunshine in a bag.
Attracted to your status, baby, you're A-list.
The original sample is so cool, why would you butcher it? But just when you thought that was the worst part of things, he starts dropping names.
I told Lizzo that I love her, but there's blurry lines. Ain't talking Alex when I say I want some Fergie time. Iggy Azalea's next on my list. P.S. Tell Ray I think she's sexy as shit.
Look, I get being shameless and fearless, but this is just uncomfortable. I guarantee you that most of these women have no idea who you are and already get objectified daily on the internet. Not to mention some of them are in long-term committed relationships. And for those of you who would say, oh no, it's flattering, shut the fuck up, you don't speak for these women. In a year where Chapel Rowan was lambasted for setting personal boundaries for herself, we need to stop treating celebrities like we have every right to decide how they run their lives just because they're famous. And for those others of you who would say, oh, but it's clearly a joke, it's not fucking funny. Sure, some of these women may laugh, but I guarantee you that most of them are doing it out of sheer politeness. And that's not mentioning the ones who are doing it sarcastically before they knee you in the fucking groin.
Gabriella Wilson, I made her my wife. And why is Katy Perry sexier at 39?
Imagine for a moment if instead of naming celebrities, he named individual women in his own life without telling them. If you weren't already disgusted, you're probably starting to feel it a bit now. And what's the fucking difference? Especially when he's so icky and descriptive with some of these.
Make it wet, make you sweat, hit Tyler with that. Megan Thee Stallion, the rate of comparison. Hit me with a whap and know that pussy is damaging.
Ew, shut the fuck up.
Fly LAX for LMA, a little getaway. With my dirty ass, she probably hit me with some pepper spray.
I know it's supposed to be self-deprecating as he pokes fun at himself, but it's really sleazy, and there's not nearly enough jokes here to make me believe that he wouldn't perk up if one of these women happens to give him the time of day. And even if they did, what, you're just hoping that they're cool with the fact that you also hit on 20 other women in this song? Seriously, the fuck is wrong with you?
Young age. Yeah.
I'm in the thick of it, everybody knows.
Number 3. Chapel Rowan's success this past year feels so gratifying. Last year, I placed her album in my top 3, and I said that if she were to break through, which I saw coming, she would become the savior of pop music. And man, does it feel so good to be proven right, as she absolutely took off this year and it was incredible. I was even lucky enough to see her live in a small enough venue in Dublin, and it's a night I will never forget. So yeah, so glad that I called that one early. And boy do I wish she was the only one that I warned you all about.
Cry, cry, go ahead and ruin someone else's life.
Ever since I realized that Benson Boone was sticking around after Ghost Town, I knew that we were all in danger of him having a huge crossover at some point. And while he never exactly left the Irish charts, I never could have predicted the level to which he would blow up in this past year. But while I saw many bashing his huge breakout song, Beautiful Things, and I, like many other of its defenders, got so sick of it over the course of the year, trust me, I defended it for a reason. It's not even close to his worst. No, for that, I give you one of the pissiest breakup songs that I've ever heard.
You're more narcissistic than anybody in Hollywood.
I'm honestly kind of shocked. Benson Boone has always been kind of a douche, but it was always more implied than explicit, hence why so many people told me I was being too harsh on Ghost Town. But here? Oh what, you're gonna cry? Boo-hoo! He really made a song where this girl is crying and he's treating her like an 80s high school bully. And unlike a high school bully, he shows that he actually is emotionally intelligent by fucking gaslighting you.
And I wish that all of...
No. That doesn't feel right. Maybe, speed it up.
Yeah, he pulled a bait and switch on this type of song. That is diabolical. And I mean that as an insult. What the hell is wrong with you? I get that he's tired and that this is supposed to be a representation of him snapping, but it's a little hard to be on your side when you're clearly being so calculated. He even does a second fake out where he pretends to doubt himself for a moment and shows a slight sign of self-awareness, a willingness to take responsibility for his side of the breakup.
And maybe you're the honest type, and it's been me the whole damn time. I should really try to calm my mind and see things from your side. Or maybe you can cry.
Okay, big man, did that feel good? Damn! I'm almost in awe. I have rarely heard a song this blatantly douchey. Certainly not from one of those willowy voiced guys with an acoustic guitar. Kian Ducrot, Shawn Mendes, even John Mayer, I fully believe that they think they're in the right, even if they're not. This guy has no such delusions. He is a prick and he doesn't care. So thank you, Benson Boone, for taking off the mask and making my job a hell of a lot easier.
Go ahead and ruin someone else's.
I'm in the thick of it, everybody knows.
Number 2. Now, okay, run it back one more time.
And it's probably A minor.
Last time, I promise. The thing is, in a very distant alternate timeline, I could have seen things going Drake's way. Hear me out. There's a universe where Drake didn't rely on AI and instead made another push-ups to force Kendrick into a battle for Song of the Summer. Now, he likely would have still lost that versus against the unprecedented success of Not Like Us, but he would have had more of a chance if he'd spent less time trolling on Instagram and more time in the booth. Instead, he got absolutely trounced, as his big swing Family Matters was almost instantly countered in under an hour and then immediately back-to-back the very next day. But believe it or not, I still thought he had a fighting chance. It wasn't over yet. Until...
The Pulitzer Prize winner is definitely spiraling. I got your fucking lines tapped, I swear that I'm dialed in.
Yes, there are 2 Drake songs. That was the slight cheating that I was describing at the start of part 1. And let's be fair and look at the positives here. The title is a pretty good jab. For those who don't know, Kendrick has a series of songs called The Hearts, Part 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. It's a whole thing, it's part of his album rollout. Too bad that Kendrick has now dropped his own Heart Part 6 that has blown this one out of the water in every way, as a powerful come-up story where he pays tribute to his own roots, never forgetting where he came from or his failings, and that was literally all you had, Drake, so sorry.
I am a war general, seasoned in preparation. My jacket is covered in medals, honor and decoration.
This song is just such a pitiful wail of defeat. While Kendrick's last big song in the beef was a triumphant victory lap, Drake's is a sullen dirge that makes him sound like a petulant child caught in a lie. And now he has to dig himself out of this hole that he dug for himself. How did he do?
We plotted for a weekend and we fed you the information. A daughter that's 11 years old, I bet he takes it. Master manipulator, you bid on a speculation. You dumb and reactive, nigga, I'm petty with dedication.
So to be clear, Kendrick drops this haunting concept track where he accuses you of, well, so many things, and it's not all that fun. I think this video with Denzel Curry summed up my feelings best. But one of the points he made was the allegation that you, Drake, are hiding a second child. an 11-year-old girl, which shook your audience to the core. And the problem with this allegation is that it's very believable, especially when Pusha already revealed your first child a few years ago. And I'm sorry, that was your plan from the beginning?
You gotta learn to fact check things and be less impatient. Your fans are rejoicing thinking this is my expiration.
Wow, I can't believe that you convinced Kendrick, and by proxy millions of other people, that you're a deadbeat twice. But why would you do that?
What about the bones?
No, really, why? The fact that so many people believed it so easily just says a lot about how you are perceived by the public. So why would you double down on that bad image? If anything, it just calls more attention back to why you lost the first beef against Pusha.
Speaking of anything with a child, let's get to that now. This Epstein angle was the shit I expected. TikTok videos you collected.
Drake, it's not good that you expected him to call you a pedo. The fact that there is so much footage of you being creepy around young girls is a problem. And then, at long last, he takes this somewhere new. And in doing so, absolutely sealed his spot on this list.
And I was like, mother, wait a second. That's that one record where you say you got molested.
So for context, this is a song from Kendrick's last album, Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers, called Mother I Sober. A song where he describes a cousin who is sent to jail for molesting children. And the strange situation that Kendrick, found himself in, having to convince his family that he wasn't molested. It's a bleak, pretty miserable song about confronting childhood trauma along with sobriety. And it's honestly one of the most devastating but important songs in Kendrick's catalog.
I don't wanna dish you anymore. This really got me second guessing. Touch My Body by Mariah Carey play, you probably start reflecting.
So, not only did Drake clearly not understand the song, but in making fun of it, he reveals himself to be a bigger piece of shit than even I was predicting. Because making fun of Kendrick this way is inadvertently extremely disrespectful to real victims of sexual abuse. And not only that, but he uses it as justification for why Kendrick hates him?
Ah, fuck me, I just made the whole connection. This is trauma from your own confessions. That's why these pedophile raps and shit you so obsessed with is so excessive.
Drake, if you think that the only reason that Kendrick hates you for believing you're a pedophile is because he himself must have been molested as a child, that says more about just how emotionally stunted and lacking in empathy you are as a person than I ever could. For the record, I was never molested as a child, but I still think that pedophiles are the scum of the earth. Crazy, right, Drake? And I wish that were the only way that Drake disgusted me here.
If I was fucking young girls, I promise I'd have been arrested. I'm way too famous for the shit you just suggested, but that's not the lesson.
Oh well, as long as you promise. Because Lord knows, no famous person has ever been allowed to get away with decades of abuse behind closed doors.
Like if Dave really fucked your girl and got her pregnant, talk about breeding resentment.
Okay, first, underrated contender for one of the grossest lines of the year.
Talk about breeding resentment.
Secondly, am I the only one who is a little confused why calling Kendrick's son Dave Freeze is necessarily an insult? Not only is it extremely unlikely, but even if it was, you're basically insulting Kendrick for being a father figure to a child that isn't even biologically his. How does that make him look bad?
Only fucking with Whitney's, not Millie Bobby Brown's. I'd never look twice at no teenager.
Okay, actually name-dropping Millie Bobby Brown yourself when her name hasn't come up once in this beef is a bold move. And it clearly shows that you're well aware of the attitudes towards your friendship with her on social media. Also, definitely not the worst part of the song, but much like Nicki, why do you end it like this?
I'm not gonna lie, this shit was some good exercise. Like, it's good to get out, get the pen working. You would be a worthy competitor if I was really a predator and you weren't fucking lying to every blogger and editor, but
But yeah, the main reason this is here is how Drake dehumanizes real victims of sexual abuse with his attitude here. He's been misogynistic and dismissive of women over his entire career, but this was still a lack of empathy that I did not personally predict. The most pitiful moment in Drake's career and his absolute worst song.
Just let me know when we're getting to the facts. Everything in my shit is facts.
And now, before the number one, let's go over a couple of dishonorable mentions.
Now it's me and all my whiskey friends, and I'm tired of it.
This is awful, but somehow still better than most of Morgan Wallen's output in 2023. I almost retroactively put Cowgirls in the top 10. What the fuck even is that song?
I want every bit of you. I guess I'm selfish.
I had to keep reminding myself that this is in fact not a Robin Thicke song. That's not a good sign. Definitely bad enough to make the worst list, but I haven't bought into Little Uzi in years. I'm just glad everyone is finally catching up.
No feds want me in the can. I do what I want, not can.
This was originally at number 8, then I realized it was too boring to write an entire segment about.
Yeah, hide your bitch, hide your wife. Yeah.
For all of you who slammed Grippy, this was so much worse to me. Also, I said that Central C missed this list. Way to sneak in there, buddy. Isn't it kind of insane that this came out this year? I feel like it's existed for over a decade. You know, outside of the obvious reason why. And now, lightning round! Yes, this is also real, and yes, it can hurt you.
I'm looking for a man in finance. Trust fund.
Somehow one of David's better hits in recent memory.
Lonely road, take me home.
ONGK, the poster boy for throwing absolutely anything at the wall to see what sticks. Ooh, I know this is technically not as bad as the other 3 I just mentioned, but this was a painful cut. I couldn't quite justify placing it over Kian Ducrot, but it was close. Fuck.
No matter what they say about me, they can't take away my dignity, no!
Basic people hate Woman's World. Real nerds know that the Whitney Houston cover so bad that it utterly doomed America to a second term of Donald Trump, that's the real evil. Likely deserves to make the list proper, but I frankly haven't gone back to it since I heard it once. Burn in hell, Kanye, alongside all the abusers you compare yourself to on this song.
I'm in the thick of it, everybody knows.
Number 1. Last year, my number 1 took up nearly an entire half of the second part of my worst list. This year, that's not going to be the case. The reason I felt the need to ramble on so much about my number 1 last year was because I knew that most of you hadn't heard it, and I really wanted to make my case. This year, I knew that this was the worst song of the year the instant I heard it, and frankly, the millions of you who heard it as well should have known too.
I need you now and tomorrow.
I've done some rather reckless things on this list. I almost implied that Ariana Grande was in the top 10. I actively antagonized the Barbs. And yet, I feel not an ounce of fear when making this top selection. I have been slandering Camila Cabello for years, and not once have I faced backlash. Hell, I've got more shit for criticizing Tate McRae, and she's just Diet Camila. And yet, in 2024, the student became the master, as Tate, the imitator, released Bland Fodder, and Camila just did nothing right. Her album flopped, contained 2 Drake features in the absolute worst year to be a Drake fan, officially proved that Lil Nas X is out of ideas, and while it wasn't the worst album I heard last year, it was close. A light 3 out of 10 if I'm feeling generous. But the one thing that I can say in its favor is that it didn't mislead me, because this was the first track, and it told me everything I needed to know. Literally the first second of this sets off alarm bells in my head. The processed synth keys that are just dragged into these long, lumbering tendrils, each punctuated by a little moan. Then Camila starts singing in that trademark nicotine tone of voice. And then the hook.
Oh my god. I love it, 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 I love it. I love it, 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 I love it.
Longtime fans may have heard this one before, but I am not a fan of repetition in music, especially when it feels this perfunctory. Not only is it lazy and nails on chalkboard annoying, but it's also only a precursor to the true ugliness.
I love it, I love it, I love it.
What the fuck even is this? Why does this sound like a demonic children's choir? Why are the synths pitched up to be so obnoxiously high? And why is it eventually punctuated by these masculine grunts? I'm serious, what the fuck are they even saying? Well, turns out this is a sample from an old Gucci Mane song. A bad one.
Smoking grapes and selling chickens, Corvette painted lemon. Gold chain.
Scratch that, a really terrible one. And yet Camila took it and made it worse than I could have possibly imagined. Now as to why, it turns out that she's just a big fan of Spring Breakers, and Gucci Mane appeared in Spring Breakers.
And we'd taken a lot of visual inspiration from Spring Breakers, and Gucci is a main character in that film.
I'm a little confused because this song is definitely not on the soundtrack. But the second reason that she gave was that she's a big fan of Playboi Carti.
I feel like he represents like unself-conscious creative freedom.
I mean, I suppose I'm glad that she got to work with someone that she's a big fan of. Also, you're not going to believe this, it turns out that he doesn't write down his verses.
And he was like, oh shit, this is fire, and he just freestyled.
Shocking, I know. Isn't it amazing that this was entirely freestyled?
Are you on the road now? Are you grown now? Are you too grown now?
Also, as a side note, watching her break down the chorus on Genius is the best thing to come out of this song.
I love it, 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 I love it. I love it, 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 I love it.
Okay, but what comes next?
I love it, I love it, I love it.
Okay. But anyway, that is the reason for this sample. It doesn't really explain why she chose to match the tone of the kids on the rest of the hook. She claims that there's a lot of creative expression on this album and a lot of nods towards hip-hop. And I'm sorry, I just don't buy any of it. This album makes her sound like she's entirely out of ideas and is just looking to meet a quota for her label. And while I am somewhat willing to give her the benefit of the doubt, I've been patient long enough. Let's address the mumbling elephant in the room. Playboi Carti adds nothing to this song. He's completely unintelligible. And I'm told that that's part of his appeal. He's like the jazz freestylist of modern hip-hop. And look, I've been saying for years that I just don't get this guy's music, and this absolutely sealed it for me. You guys are all fucking delusional. He's not clever, he's not a visionary, he always sounds like he's just had dental surgery, and that's when he's not blatantly ripping off other artists. Every song he's on, he's the worst part. Whether it's Type Shit, where he's shamelessly mimicking Future on his own song, Timeless, where he squanders Pharrell's beat, motherfucking Carnival, where he manages to piss me off almost as much as goddamn Kanye. And don't even get me started on his comeback single, All Red, his most blatant Future ripoff to date. I am just so sick of all of it. I'm officially a hater. This guy has never made a good piece of music in his fucking life, and I am so sick of seeing him get such a huge platform for it. He doesn't even like his own fans. He showed up on a stream earlier this year with Aiden Ross after being paid $2 million and left after 6 minutes because he genuinely seems to believe that it's all beneath him. Which, look, wasting Aiden Ross's time, I'm completely fine with that. But how do you come out of that room looking like the bigger of two assholes? And we're all supposed to just accept it and heap praises on him as some kind of genius when this is the work that he's putting into his guest features. No, fuck this, I'm done, and I Love It was the final straw. It's truly sad to me that Camila's worst song to date is because of a man that she's supposedly a fan of, who maybe showed up to the studio in person, most likely didn't even look her in the fucking eyes once, and barely contributed to a finished product that he was supposedly the main inspiration behind. Most overrated artist working today, and this song is a culmination of his years of goddamn coasting. Utterly worthless track, easily the worst song of 2024. Fuck this!
She says I'm way too young, way too young.